Welcome back then folks to Special Projects build number 2 in pack number 10, and this is a brand which I found that I've kind of loved more and more recently, especially in their lesser appreciated vehicles, Tommykaira. Of course I've done one or two Tommykaira builds before, this time for one of their more obscure ones, so obscure that even on the internet it's difficult to find specs for it beyond the basic idea of what they've done, because obviously this was a pre-internet vehicle in terms of when it was built, the M20Si. Now I've actually built this one based on the Silvia K's, or the Silvia K's even, Dia selection. Of course, there are a couple of different S13s in the game. In particular, this is the 1990 shape, if you're looking to get the exact replica. And as far as the upgrades, I've tried to make it as realistic as possible. The real car has 235 horsepower apparently, so we're running just a little bit less because I didn't want to restrict the engine and affect the power and torque curve too much. As far as weight, I was not able to find what this thing weighs, so I've taken a little bit of a liberty there and actually increased the weight just by a tiny amount, because it does have some changes. Now in real life this thing has better brakes, better suspension, the turbo is wound up a bit more, because the standard car is already around 200 horses or so, this one with 235 isn't that crazy. And I find it interesting how many vehicles Tommykaira has done where they're not as crazy as you think of Tommykaira as being. For most of us, especially Gran Turismo fans, your first thought when you think of Tommykaira is probably the ZZ2, which is known for being a crazy car, but a lot of their vehicles, even all the way down to the Micras, they're quite modest, and I actually kind of love that. Tommykaira might be my favourite Japanese tuning house. In fact, it probably is, without really any rivalry for me. There's just something more exotic to me about Tommykaira, almost like an Italian brand in some kind of weird way. Now, as far as the upgrades, I've gone for the sports air filter, the sports silencer, sports pads. It comes with comfort mediums anyway, so I've upgraded that to sports hards. Of course, that's more of an optional thing, depending on the point level you want to have. The sports discs, funnily enough, I've actually only just fitted these, because I realised when I was checking the build, I'd forgotten to do that for some reason. I'd done the pads, but not the discs. So it was 504 points, it's just jumped up to 511. And the funny change about that is it means that the lap that you're going to watch me doing later at Tsukuba would have probably been a little bit quicker had I already fitted those brakes. So compare it to your lap and see if it makes any difference. We've got the sports clutch and flywheel. As far as the ballast, like I said, I have added just a tiny bit, and I could be totally off base there, but I'm just trying to be as realistic and grounded as it seems it should be. I've got the low RPM turbo upgrade, which of course definitely helps out of corners as well, getting us up around 233 horsepower. Like I said, you can bump it just over 235 to like 236, but like I said, I didn't want to go over the bar and I didn't want to have to restrict it, so I've cut my losses at 233. We've got the fully customized diff, the height adjustable sports suspension, which is one of the real world improvements to have better suspension on it as well. As far as the racing section, there is nothing fitted at all, surprisingly. For the extreme stuff, this is something which they didn't do, which is the steering angle adapter, just for the cornering, obviously, and being naturally a good drift car, you may as well do it, and we've got nothing for the ultimate section either. So as I'll have put at the start of the video, there is a link in the description to grab this player's livery. It is a wide body version, which you could say is a little bit of overkill for this one, because the real car doesn't really look to have a wide body. Aside from that though, the visuals are pretty good. Apparently the aero, in particular the spoiler on the real car, is functional as well. It does improve downforce in real life, it's not just a visual thing, so that's great to know, because in the game it does also. And incidentally, there are a few different versions of this visual design from different players. This is just the one which I like the look of. It's got UK style plates, it's got the wide body, the wheel selection is good. Just across the board, even the colour, I like it. I like what the player had done. So we've got the sports hards fitted, as you can see, just over 500 points, so fairly usable if you wanted to detune it or tune it up to a higher level. We've got the body height on 100mm. The anti-roll, of course, is not adjustable with this suspension. 35 and 45 on the dampers. 2.05 on the springs, so just tightened up a little bit. Half a degree of camber, and you cannot adjust the toe, but there is some on the back already, as you can see. As far as the diff, I've got 10, 30 and 20, so nothing crazy there. As far as the transmission, that is standard. Power restrictor and ECU are untouched. And like I said, I've just added 10 kilos of ballast. I've shoved that all the way to the back. Doesn't exactly make much of a difference. Anyway, but the reason why I've done that is because it seems to me like they didn't really do any weight-saving exercises in particular on this car. It has a little bit more power, the extra aero and the changed out parts could well have the same weight or maybe just a little bit more. Now, that could be totally wrong. It could be lighter, so if anyone knows that for a fact, absolutely tell me down in the comments. But for now, I just made it, rounded off to 1150 kilos, just to be safe. And as far as the downforce, I've got 50 on the front and the rear. And over here, super simple, just everything that we fitted, which wasn't that many things. So this is a pretty modest build. And now, of course, as I said earlier on, we will jump out to Tsukuba to show you what it can do in practice. Now, this seems to be becoming kind of a regular thing for me, wherein some of my favourite builds that I've done in special projects end up being these Japanese, like, aftermarket tuner cars. A couple of packs back, I really enjoyed the Mugen Civic, and then last time around, I think it was, I made a fictional Nismo 340R based on the S15 Silvia. This time around, the Tommykaira M20Si. This is probably not my favourite of this pack, but I do really like this one. I feel for some people you might think, like, why? It's not that much of a change, 235 horsepower, a little bit more weight, wide body. Doesn't sound like that much of a difference, but it's just a really nice car to work with. It's nicely balanced, nicely weighted. The handling is really good. You can easily kick the tail out and have some fun with it if you want to, but at the same time, it's pretty quick through the corners as well. In fact, here at Tsukuba, the lap times are not too far behind vehicles with way more power, which of course is a testament to the whole idea of if you've got less power, but if you can use more of it, you'll end up having a more fun car. And that's essentially what we've got this time around. So a Tommykaira, but not as crazy of a Tommykaira as you might usually expect, and certainly an undervalued one compared to many of their more obvious cars. So if you do decide to use this one, I hope of course you have a ton of fun with it. Check out the Alphard build from earlier today in Pack 10 as well, and of course stick around for the rest of this week for more in Special Projects Pack number 10. But for now, thanks for watching.